The story begins with Aichi Coexistence Academy, a school where boys are forced to live with girls and are ordered to throw their masculinity away lest they want to be punished by armed girls. We meet our main cast of girls: Rin Onigawara, Mary Kikakujo, Satori Tamaba, Wabari Hanasaka, and Tsukuyo Inaba. Together, these girls are the Supreme Five Swords. Our male protagonist, Fudo Nomura, enters the academy on his first day. It's unbeknownst to him that his life will be forever changed after this incident. The girls are gathered here to discuss what to do with Fudo. It turns out that Fudo was expelled from the previous school for his tendency to get into fights. Meanwhile, Kyudo Amo descends from the stairs to join them. She warns them about Nomura, as she has fought him before. Rin Onigawara takes it upon herself to correct Fudo as he's transferred to her class. The girls restrain him and tell him that this used to be a all-girls academy. However, when it became co-ed, boys started to harass girls there, so in order to protect themselves, girls took up weapons. Out of all these armed girls, 5 women quickly arose to the top and became the Supreme Five-Sword Vigilantes. After their efforts, they were able to gain an upper hand over the boys and force them to live like girls if they wanted to study here. Fudo refuses to conform to their rules and runs away from the girls. Rin follows him and they get into a fight. Rin attacks him with her sword attacks, but he expertly dodges using his feet. She uses a special technique called mirrored breathing to gain power and pushes him against the tree. He waits for the right moment and goes to her right to restrict her breathing pattern. He then uses a special move to knock her away. He explains that it's his special technique which he hasn't named yet. Magic bullets, she asks. This surprises him as he takes her down. A girl whacks Fudo on the head from behind, which results in him accidentally kissing Rin. Rin is flustered as expected by this incident. Fudo's friend tells him that if he wants to go outside, he'll need a special slip with stamps from all 5 Supreme Sword Vigilantes. To appease the girls at the academy, Fudo gets another dude to smuggle a box of cakes for him. He asks the girls the whereabouts of Rin, and they tell him that she's resting after the shock. As Fudo makes his way to the girls' dormitory to meet Rin, Rin is thinking of that incident and lamenting. Fudo shows up and offers her the box of cakes. She blushes and accepts the gift. He comments on her cuteness, which makes her blush even more. He asks her whether she'd like to go outside with him, and she ends up giving him a slip for going outside. He asks her if she'd like more kisses for this favor, which makes her pass out. He grabs her shirt as another girl walks in on them. This lands him in a bad spot as everyone misunderstands the situation. As he's running away, he runs into Choka Baragasaki, the self-proclaimed head of the Junior Five Swords. As she's berating Fudo, Rin's sidekick, Nono Mozunono, also shows up, claiming herself to be the head of the Junior Five Swords. They both attack Fudo to punish him. Even though they have the numbers advantage, they don't work as a team. Fudo takes advantage of this and dismantles both of them using his magic bullet. Next day, he's confronted by Rin, who tells him that she will supervise him from now on. Fudo's friend tells him that he's now in real trouble since the girl he made cry, Choka Baragasaki, is the favorite underling of Mary Kikakujo, one of the Supreme Five Swords. Fudo asks him whether there's anyone that survived the 5 swords. The friend tells him about the Empress, the only person who was immune to the punishments from the 5 swords. Fudo recalls having met that person after hearing her description from the guide, as Mary Kikakujo and her sidekick come to berate Fudo and recall what he did yesterday with Choka, Nono, and Rin. Rin takes Fudo's side and explains that it was a misunderstanding. Rin tells him to go ahead as she confronts Mary. They get into a battle to determine the fate of Fudo. Rin ends up losing as Fudo runs into Kyudo Amo, aka the Empress. Fudo recalls that the Amo he met wasn't a woman. He asked her for how she turned herself into a woman. He runs upstairs to punch her to see for himself, but is stopped by Mary, who tells him that his pants have fallen off. As he fixes his pants, she challenges him to a duel. Meanwhile, Amo has a flashback where she recalls the time she fought Fudo. She had initially offered for him to join her clan, but he refused. As a result, she mauled him severely. She regrets not killing him back then and swears to complete the job this time. Elsewhere, Fudo is having a difficult time fighting Mary. His Kevlar gloves are not good enough at deflecting her piercing attacks. She soon gains the upper hand. Meanwhile, Rin is searching for them and locates their whereabouts by asking an unconscious Choka. Fudo is at his limit, so he tackles her in desperation. She stabs him in the midsection, but he shields himself with a magazine. He then uses the magazine to whack her on the head. Now it's time for his finishing blow. He uses the magic bullet and knocks her out. He stops himself at the last moment as Rin walks in on them. She gets pissed off by seeing them, but Mary explains that he didn't touch her. She then agrees to stamp on the slip if she can supervise him along with Rin. Rin and Mary are having trouble supervising Fudo as everyone thinks they're flirting with him instead. The eldest member of the team, Warabi Hanasaka, notices this and proposes Rin and Mary are the ones that require correction. To deal with the situation, Warabi arranges the Festival of Blood. To survive the festival, the participants need to complete a series of challenges arranged by Warabi. Fudo finds his friend crucified in the school grounds. Warabi tells them that he's being punished for smuggling stuff in the academy. Warabi tells them that they will suffer the same fate lest they complete the challenges. Fudo doesn't want to take part but agrees when Warabi promises to stamp his slip. She summons her 3 musketeers and orders them to go against them inside a sumo ring. The 3 musketeers throw mawashi sumo belts at them and urge them to wear it. Nono and Shoka come to the rescue, but they're no match for the musketeers. Rin and Mary don't know how to tie the mawashi, so Fudo has to do it. After some awkward moments, it's done. Fudo steps in the ring, taunting the musketeers, but they reveal that his opponent is actually a big, scary bear. Scared at first, Fudo bravely confronts the bear. As this match starts, Fudo tackles the bear. The bear gets ready to claw swipe, but Fudo hits him with the magic bullet attack. The bear dodges it, so Fudo launches another magic bullet. The bear is a much tougher opponent, so the moves don't do much. Fudo tries the most Russian thing I think I've ever seen, to suplex the bear, but it's too heavy. So Fudo unties the bear's mawashi and thus wins the match according to the rules. Fudo's victory angers Warabi, so she cancels the subsequent matches and tells Fudo to reach her on the roof. To get to the roof, he must fight her 3 musketeers at each floor, who will have highly trained armed girls assisting them. Rin and Mary tell him that all of it is a trap and he shouldn't go there. Fudo tells him that he isn't one to give up, plus he needs to help his crucified friend. He tells them both to stay behind, but they insist on helping. They decide that going to the roof from the staircase will be suicide, so they look for a different path to the roof. One of the 5 legendary swords, Satori Tamaba, helps them find a new path to the roof, but makes it clear that she's only doing this because Warabi is going too far. With the new path, Fudo and the girls make their way to the roof. Meanwhile, some masked girls help the crucified friend. Fudo challenges Warabi and says if he wins, she and all of her underlings will have to wear mawashi. Warabi summons her bear and brings out her sword. Fudo tries to duck under the bear's hooks, but the bear goes for a straight jab and knocks Fudo down. Meanwhile, Mary prevents Warabi's underlings from reaching the roof. As Fudo and the boxing bear fight, Rin attacks Warabi, but Warabi stabs her in the shoulder with a shuriken. They then engage in a sword fight. Rin finally gains the upper hand in the sword fight. Meanwhile, Fudo is having a hard time fighting off the bear. I mean, who wouldn't? The bear pushes him into a corner. Meanwhile, Mary is attacked with nuts and bolts, which she's having a hard time defending against. Warabi comments on Rin's changed behavior and says that she's gotten emotional. Fudo tells Rin that Warabi is just distracting her. He tells Rin and Mary to keep fighting as he finally gains the upper hand on the bear. Using her sword fighting skills, Mary corners the underlings and knocks them down. Meanwhile, Rin defeats Warabi. Fudo thanks Rin and Mary for helping him so far. After Fudo's performance in the matches and bouts, he's gained immense popularity in the academy. Everywhere he goes, girls from the academy follow him. This annoys Rin and Mary a lot. Every time Fudo does something, no matter how trivial, he's cheered by the girls in the academy. Rin and Mary tell him to mind his own business as his supervisors. They're even more disappointed since Fudo didn't notice that Rin was wearing a new uniform today and Mary had a new perfume. He notices that he's being stalked by someone, but doesn't think much of it. One night when he goes to sleep, the stalker appears in his room. The next day, Fudo acknowledges that Rin was wearing a new uniform and Mary had a new perfume. This makes them blush as they carry on with their daily inspection. This time they end up finding a picture in his clothes that makes them rage. This picture shows Fudo in bed with Satori Tamaba, one of the Supreme 5 swords. Fudo tells them he has no memory of this, but the girls don't believe him as they run after him. He runs into Warabi. She helps him hide from Rin and Mary. After Rin and Mary leave, Warabi tells Fudo that Satori is trying to ruin his relationship with Rin and Mary so she can isolate him. Fudo tells Warabi that he'll find a way to prove his innocence. Warabi tells him that he can't sneak into the girls' dormitory. Fudo tells her that he'll allow himself to be captured in order to sneak in. He then goes back to Rin and Mary, but they capture him and start torturing him with sticks. They stop after noticing a scar on his back. Warabi sneaks in and brings Fudo some bread. She commends his will and helps him on his way to Satori's quarters. They look for evidence of his innocence but find nothing. They then make their way through the dormitory, which is rigged with traps. Some girls walk by, so Fudo has to hide behind the bear. After distracting the girls with her bear cub, they sneak into Satori's locker room. Here they are confronted by Satori's masked girl, who uses a blowgun to attack them. As they are attacked by her, Satori shows up. He remembers that the masked girl was the one that was stalking him. He asks her why she did all of that, and Satori says that she found him annoying. Meanwhile, Rin and Mary are drinking heavily, thinking of what Fudo has done. Back to Fudo, Satori forces him to fight in the girls' shower, while Warabi takes on the masked girl in the locker room. Fudo has a hard time fighting against Satori as her neutral mannerisms make her difficult to read. She slashes him effortlessly when he tries to grab the bag. He's distracted when trying to anticipate attacks. Meanwhile, Warabi is getting dizzy since the blow darts had drugs on them. She cuts herself to get herself back to her senses and continues fighting. Meanwhile, Fudo is getting desperate, so he strips to catch Satori off guard. This works and he gets closer to finish her off with a slam. Warabi also gains the upper hand and does a judo throw on the masked girl. Satori tells Fudo that she will throw all the data in the pool, thus rendering all of this effort useless. He slaps Satori in frustration as the proof falls in the pool. Satori keeps taunting him and asks why he's so angry. He tells Satori that it's because she made Rin cry. Satori hides Fudo as one of the Supreme Five Swords. Tsukuyo Inaba walks up to them. Tsukuyo Inaba tells Satori that she would like to talk to her as she leaves. Satori tells Fudo that he would have died if he were to confront Tsukuyo. Some girls found Warabi's body and took her to the infirmary. Fudo soon passed out due to his injuries. He wakes up in the infirmary along with Warabi. Meanwhile, Rin keeps dreaming of Fudo, so she tries to walk to his punishment room, but turns out that Mary had the same idea as they bump into each other. They both don't want to admit that they were going to visit Fudo, so they go to the cafeteria. Satori shows up at the cafeteria and tells them everything. Rin meets Fudo in the infirmary and asks Fudo to forgive her. She tells Fudo that she'll do anything to make up for what she's done. Fudo asks her to close her eyes and take off her mask. This makes Rin upset, so Fudo asks her why she always wears that mask. Rin tells Fudo that she can only feel like herself when she's behind that mask. She tells Fudo that when she said that she looks cute without the mask, it made her happy as she felt he was the only one who accepted her. Fudo returns the mask and says she can take it off when she feels like it. Fudo tells Rin that he's an orphan and was raised by an old man who trained him. Rin starts crying when she hears it. Mary also shows up and apologizes to Fudo. Some boys are bathing when they're startled by a strange creature on the window. They come to Fudo for help and tell him that they saw a woman's head. Fudo doesn't pay much attention to them as he leaves for class. It turns out that the empress, Kirukiru Amo, has disappeared from her room and is on a rampage. The principal cancels all the classes for today after hearing that news from Inaba. Fudo asks Rin about Mary. Rin tells him that everyone is busy at the dorm since things are going missing there. It turns out that the bear's cub is also missing, and Warabi is on the search for him. Mary runs into them and tells them that someone has stolen Choka's wig. When the group is searching, they run into Warabi, who's looking for the cub. This makes Fudo recall the morning when the two guys told him about a creature with a woman's head. He finds the bear cub with the wig and returns the wig to Choka. Meanwhile, the Empress confronts Satori and prepares to attack her on the roof. Warabi senses that Satori might be Empress's next target and heads on to save her. Meanwhile, on the roof, Satori tries to draw her sword out, but Amo stabs her in the belly. Her underling tries to save her, but she's no match for Amo. It's revealed that her underling is actually the real Satori, and she's her sister. It turns out that the real Satori's sister was pretending to be Satori all along. When the real Satori is stabbed, her sister ends up crying, but Amo coldly stabs her from the back. Warabi makes it to the roof and tries to fight Amo, but even the bear and her sword is no match for Amo's skills. Meanwhile, Fudo notices Inaba and walks towards her to get his last stamp on the slip. Fudo walks towards Tsukuyo Inaba, but she knocks him away with her sword. She tells him not to worry as she didn't cut him anywhere. She tells him that the headmistress has ordered her to look after Fudo. Fudo learns that she's blind and is also a student of the same martial art he learned with swords, although he doesn't use swords anymore. Meanwhile, Amo has critically injured the bear and Warabi on the roof. Warabi's underlings try to save them, but they can't even touch Amo. Fudo hears this commotion on the roof and runs towards it, making Inaba angry. He reaches the roof and sees a pile of unconscious bodies. He screams, but Amo is nowhere to be found on the roof. Meanwhile, Amo runs into Rin, Mary, and their sidekicks on her way. They prepare to battle as the headmistress comes to aid Fudo and tells him that she'll take care of the injured ones. Fudo runs to help Rin and Mary. Amo easily dismantles Rin and Mary. As they're losing, Inaba comes to the rescue. She is able to land 3 strikes on Amo in 1 second. However, Amo also lands a significant strike and snaps her blade in half. Before she could do further damage, Fudo comes to Inaba's aid and charges at Amo. It's revealed in a flashback that Fudo used to flirt with Amo, since even though she was disguised as a boy, she still looked feminine. Fudo and Amo became friends, but Fudo turned down Amo when she asked him to hang out with her, since he had already made plans with his other buddy. Enraged with jealousy, Amo attacked that boy. Since then, she keeps the rage inside her against Fudo. He tells Amo that he hates her for what she's done. Amo is now determined to kill Fudo. Fudo prepares to fight her as Rin and Mary cheer him on. Fudo charges straight at her, but his attacks don't seem to reach her. Inaba comes to his aid and whispers something in his ear that he can use to defeat Amo. Before executing that move, Fudo thanks Rin and Mary once again for standing by his side. Listening to his speech, Amo laments that he's still on their side, even though she wants him. He was the only one who could bring light in her gloomy world, but she's too prideful to shun her jealousy. Amo had become even more jealous when she saw Fudo get along with the members of the Supreme Five Swords. Even though she wanted him, she couldn't get him, so she decided to kill him. Fudo charges at Amo and surprises her with his unconventional tactics. Their bout turns into a brawl as they hit each other with their hardest hits. Amo tells Fudo to hit her with his magic bullet. He's reluctant to do that, but she forces him to do it as she tells him to become hers. Fudo says no and hits her with his special move. This knocks her down for good. After that bout, Inaba offers to be Fudo's martial arts teacher. Fudo tries to back out, but she tells him that she can stamp his slip for him. Meanwhile, the headmistress also shows up and tells Fudo that he's expelled. Next morning, Fudo says goodbye to Warabi and Satori. Meanwhile, Rin and Mary protest against the decision in the headmistress's office. Inaba tells Fudo that Amo is headed for the airport, so he has to hurry if he wants to say something to her. With his permission slip stamped by all 5 swords, he's free to leave the academy. He gets to the airport and tries to convince Amo not to leave. Amo tells him that she can do what she wants, and gives Fudo a kiss before departing. Fudo comes back to the academy to say goodbye to Rin and Mary, but it turns out that the headmistress has overturned her decision. They all welcome Fudo back to the academy, and that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you at the next one.